PJNet Live on Wednesday night. We have the first of two Michelles standing by in the green room. Live stream is up and healthy. Switching to Studio 5 in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, we already had. Okay. When things don't go exactly as planned, with Michelle, like everyone else, I try to touch base with them and say, what would you like to talk about? And she emailed me back and said, when life doesn't go as we plan it. So, to introduce this topic, we have Michelle, big Michelle. And for those of you that were here last week, Michelle has a new camera that is now a week less new than it was before. And Michelle, you had your millennial technological daughter work on the camera and change something, yet nothing changed.
Yeah, because on Zoom it was perfect. So we thought it would be also then perfect on this. And as you can see, it is not. So I don't know. She changed some things and said, yeah, it's good. So I don't know. We researched it, but so it's perfect to have the topic when things don't go as planned, because there you go.
There it is. Well, nonetheless, I'm still trying to process some of the things that happened at the North Carolina Christian Writer Conference, and I went to Cecil Stokes' class.
Mm-hmm.
And there weren't that many people in there, so that was an opportunity to get a lot of Q&As. And of course, I'm there filming. I'm not part of the class, but I was compelled to ask a question. I just wanted to know. I said, what do you think about the Kendricks brothers films? Now, I was trying to tee it up. Of course, he had a lot of good things to say about it, but I was trying to tee up, and I have great things to say about. Please keep producing more of those good Christian faith-based movies. But from the very first one I saw, and everyone in between to the recent ones, there's a recurring theme that it's almost like you're telling a lost world. If you'll just accept Jesus Christ, all of your problems he will wave a magic wand over them, they will get fixed, and everything will be okay. That is not the message of Jesus Christ, is it?
No, it is not. Nowhere in there does he promise us a rose garden. That was somebody else. That was a hit song from the 70s, but that is not what God promised. And, I think that when we mislead people to think that once you become a Christian, everything's going to be butterflies and sunshine and bluebirds on your shoulder, that we do a disservice to God and to them, because that isn't what happens. In fact, sometimes as you're doing big things for God, Joyce Meyer always says, new level, new devil. Sometimes things will come at you even more so than they did before when you weren't being used of God, because the devil's trying to discourage you. So, that is not the case. Things do not always go as planned. And I think that it's during those times we often experience the most growth. So you have to really just sort of dig your heels in that faith ground and just stand. That's why that verse is, having done all else, stand. When you've done everything else, stand, because, you just wait for God to come through, because we know his promises are true. So it doesn't make it any easier as you're waiting, though. It doesn't.
Well, yeah, they are ultimately true. Let me back up a step. We will preach from the pulpit that people start abusing drugs and living lifestyles that have consequences, and we'll tell them, well, no wonder the situation you in are a logical conclusion based on the choices that you've made. I don't think that's an untrue message. Do you?
No, I think there are consequences. Sin always has consequences. My brother and I used to always say that sin will take you further than you wanted to go, and keep you there longer than you wanted to stay, and it'll cost you more than you wanted to spend. That's what sin is. So there are consequences to our choices. Thank goodness that God is there to pick up the pieces and doesn't penalize us. It's not like, I think people have the wrong impression of God, that he's this God with this big stick and he's going to knock you on the head when you do something wrong. That isn't the loving God that we serve. But he is a God who is just, and he can't go against his word. So yes, when we do things that are in contrary or in contradiction to his word, there are consequences. Not because he's punishing us; it's just because that's why he told us to do it the other way, because he knew that we were going to get into trouble if we did it this way.
So then we could safely say, the sin, God can forgive the sin, but the consequences, this goes back to Adam and Eve. Everything was fine.
Right.
And then they decided, that we would rather pay the consequence. We'd rather sin and pay consequences than to be ignorant, I guess, of the knowledge of good and evil. But I do find it odd that many pulpits, would be proclaiming, these people are suffering because of their lifestyles. Well, that may be true, but I think that's a misleading truth, because there are many Christians suffering because they are Christians, more so today than in thousands of years.
That's for sure. And I think that you have to be able to know the difference. That's that sort of that spiritual discernment that we can have as Christians. You can pray for that. Some people just are really good with that. I've been attaining in that my whole life. It wasn't something that I just walked in naturally, but the Lord has helped me in that. But yeah, I always just ask the Lord when things are not going well. When I step through a door and I'll think, wow, this is not at all what I expected, or things are harder. I will always pray, Lord, did I miss you? And if I did, please come get me. Or if this is you and this is just hard right now, then give me the strength and the wisdom to carry forward. So those are the prayers that you need to pray. But I think when I was talking about this topic tonight, I was really thinking about one of the chapters in our book that Bethany Jett and I did that actually debuts October 1st, but we did a big signing for it in Nashville this past week, and actually Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And this is the book. It's Platinum Faith. And so we just
let me fix that, folks. Bear with me.
Oh, yeah, it's backwards.
Bear with me. We are going to fix that right the heck now. Okay.
Well,
it's gonna be magic. Okay, I promise you. Here comes the magic. There you go.
Woohoo! Platinum Faith. So you can see and look at that. It's like foil. Look at the side here. It's like all. Look at that. It's all pretty and shiny, like platinum should be, right? So Platinum Faith. That we're pretty excited about that. We just got our hands on that this weekend. We're so thrilled to have it. But we did quite a few radio interviews and podcast interviews and TV interviews and lots of things this past week while we were there. And one of the things that we talked about was this topic: when things don't go as you had hoped or you were standing and believing for, and they don't turn out the way that you had really been praying. Are you still going to be faithful? I mean, that's the thing. It's easy to be, yes, I am standing in faith, and I am a sold out Christian when everything's going your way. But when things don't go your way, are you still standing in faith? And are you still joyful? Are you still standing there and proclaiming that God is good? Because that's when it's hard. And that's, I think that's when God, he calls that sacrificial praise, right? When you're praising him in spite of the circumstances. And I talk about in one of the chapters, the first chapter actually, about a person named Zoe Caldwell. She was just a baby when I wrote this story for a ministry magazine out in Texas. And her parents, Tina and Clay Caldwell, I interviewed them because when their baby was born at the time, she was the youngest baby to be born to actually survive. But she was like 20 weeks or something. And he could fit his wedding band around her body. She was tiny, tiny, and they didn't expect her to survive. And that obviously was not what they were believing for. These are both, sold out Christians, had believed God for this baby. And then the baby is born so early that he had to make the decision. I write about this. Clay did, to either deliver the baby and probably almost positively the baby was supposed to die, or if he let the baby stay in his wife much longer, she was going to be die of infection. So it was like it was a no-win situation for him. And they chose to have the baby delivered, and she wasn't expected to live. But these are faith-filled people, and they just stood and believed God for this miracle. And that's why they named her Zoe, the life of God, just the breath of God being breathed into her. They played scriptures in her little nursery, and they couldn't even touch her. For her skin was transparent, Mark. They couldn't even touch her. It was an amazing testimony. And that little baby that I wrote about all these years ago is a beautiful. She's doing art now. She's in her 20s and thriving, and a beautiful Christian girl. It was a miracle of God. But it was rough those first few days and months and even years. And I'm telling you, had they not stood in faith, that little girl wouldn't be here today. But that wasn't what they expected. When they prayed for a baby girl, they didn't expect to have this little baby come out that needed so much medical treatment and so many. I mean, every hour there was a new obstacle to overcome. Nobody wants that you would never choose that. And yet God used that to win so many people to the Lord. Her testimony has gone around the world, and now we've even shared it in Platinum Faith. It's just God continues to use this fine young woman for his glory. But I don't think that if God would have said to Tina and Clay, hey, I would really like to do this with Zoe and make this a cool testimony, they probably go, could you choose somebody else? We really wouldn't want to sign up for that. Nobody's going to volunteer. Oh yeah, pick me. And yet God has used that young woman extraordinarily. And so I think it's at those times when you find out that you'd have to choose between your wife or the baby living, and then the baby's born, and they gave her absolutely no chance of survival. Then are you still going to stand in faith? Because I'm telling you, if they hadn't, that little girl wouldn't be here.
And that's actually in your new book, Platinum Faith.
It is. That whole story was just it was one of those stories that impacted me when I first wrote it, and I think about it all the time. It's just because it was so in your face every minute. They had to believe for a new miracle. I mean, I remember being at the ministry, and they were, sending out prayer emails like, this is what we believe for Zoe for this day. Like there was something new we needed to believe for every day. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It was a tough season. But God.
Or you're bringing to mind several real life scenarios. When you get married in the church, you say these vows, and they typically include, in sickness and in health, for richer and poorer. We readily say, I do, without really giving that a lot of thought, do we? Because when it really happens, we find out, did you really mean that?
Mm-hmm, that's right. And I mean, I've got friends and family who have had to go through that. My mother went through that with my dad. He had stroke after stroke after stroke, and she was his caregiver. And anybody who's been a caregiver knows how difficult that job is. Of course, you would do it because you love them so much, but it day in and day out, it takes a toll on the caregiver's health and on you spiritually. And my mother she was a saint, but I'm telling you, there were days where I would look at her and I would just not even see the light in her eyes anymore, because it was such a hard season. Even though my sister and my brother helped, it was not easy. But you're right, in sickness and in health, and she lived that out. But I'm sure there were days that she didn't want to choose that, but she just didn't have any other choice. You just had to say, but God, I know God is still in control. In my own life, and I'm sure in yours, you've had those experiences where you think, I wouldn't have chosen this. But when I look back after I've come through it, I'll think I wouldn't have chosen it, but I couldn't have learned the lessons I learned and had my faith grow in the way that it did either way, probably. Like, I think I'm sometimes one of those people that has to go around the mountain again to get the message. Like, are you a little bit hard-headed yourself? I mean, I'm just guessing. I don't know for sure, but you may be like me.
I think sometimes we are truly confused as to what the word love means in the agape sense. I'll make some hypothetical examples. Oh, I love my daughter. I love my son. Oh, yeah, they're going to school. They're getting this, and they got this new job, and they're this. Okay. When your daughter goes on the street to be a prostitute, do you still love her? Mm-hmm. When your son turns into a drug dealer, do you still love him? See, agape love isn't, we love chocolate cake. We love motorcycles. We love things. We use that word very flippantly. Mm-hmm. When God says love, like in a marriage, which is really just an earthly portrait of his love for us, it is a covenant agape love that means I love you. I love you. Not what you do, not what you, but I love you for who you are. And we wrestle with that because we are in a society that offers affirmation based on performance.
That's true.
At the country club, you will be popular until you are bankrupt, and then you won't be a member there anymore. At the country club, you will be a popular member in good standing until you are convicted of a felony. And then you are no longer loved there. This is the difference, and I have experienced this kind of love from others long after I had taught about it, but I felt it and experienced it several times, and it became very real. Another illustration that comes to mind, hearing what you've just said, is Zig Ziglar has a phrase, a man like a tree is easier to measure when down. Well, as a football coach, we see these teams that are championship teams, and they are so well disciplined and so well behaved. Let them get behind. Let me see them then.
Yeah.
See
the character.
Yeah. See, they don't know how to handle losing. They don't know how to handle being behind. You're going to find out a real championship team is the team that comes from behind. I have literally seen, I kid you not, team members get in a fight on a football field with each other, not with the opposing team, with their own teammate. Folks, when it comes to things not turning out, if your joy, if your satisfaction is based on circumstances and outcomes thereunto, you are chasing a joy that's not real.
Yeah. Not sustainable. You know, that kind of joy is fleeting. You might have it for that 1 minute or for that one little season when it works out. But in reality, because we're not in heaven yet, we know that we're not going to bat 1,000 every time. We're not going to have a best-selling book every time. We can believe for those things. We should stand in faith for those things. But we have to know that it doesn't always turn out as we had hoped. And, you know, there's something we said. Remember the old Garth Brooks song about I thank the Lord for unanswered prayers? Do you remember that song?
No, but I'm not a Garth Brooks fan.
Well, I mean,
did Led Zeppelin do any? I mean, Van Halen or anybody?
I love those guys too, but they did not. They did not. But I just remember that song, and the sentiments were really, really good. It was, you know, sometimes we're praying so hard for something because we think it's the best thing for us or for our family or for our loved ones, and God in his infinite wisdom, because he knows the beginning to the end and everything in between. And it says in the Bible that his ways are higher than our ways. So we're only looking at it through our human eyes and praying for what we think is the best outcome. And yet God knows that isn't. And so we don't get the answer that we wanted. But if we'd gotten the answer that we were praying for, it wouldn't have been good for us. In fact, we could have been miserable with that, right?
Exactly. God is a heavenly Father that loves us and cares for us. As parents, we certainly understand telling our children, no, you can't play out in the streets.
Right.
We don't
you can't
do
touch
that.
the hot stove. That's right. Yeah.
Right. We don't do that to take away their joy. Okay.
We protect them. We protect them at any cost.
Let me mention some of the people in the chat room, and if you may know Doug Carter, met him at the Writers Conference. Hazards 4 is with us, folks. If you're not here on Friday night, you need to be here on Friday night. Hazards 4 plays the tunes, and he's got a style, and he's also got a video segment of his own called Perspectives. Okay, I think this is a new guest we've never seen before, Jerry Long Bowman.
Welcome.
Welcome. Glad you're here.
Yes.
Now, we may have some people drifting in, anticipating the next Michelle, who will be coming up in a few moments.
Michelle Squared. We love it.
Actually, Michelle, now, folks, don't be fooled by that name. I have been advised it's Bank Sun. Bank like where you go with money. Sun like the sun. Okay? Bankston. And Rachel Colby is here. Now, folks, I haven't told you this, but if you're here tomorrow night, you're going to see Rachel live right here on PJNet Live. Isn't that great? Sunbelt Girl, our hostess for tonight, playing the videos, and Tammy from Georgia, our all-American PJNet cheerleader. We have some people in the balcony not logged in. You're welcome. We're glad you're here, and you're welcome to log in if you want to. If you want to just hang out with us, that's fine too. Michelle, we need to wrap it up. Tell me, are you taking next week off? Please tell me you are going to slow down.
I am home for 5 whole days. I'm going to see my grandson, Bear, is turning 2, and so we're having a big party for him on the 31st, which is also Jeff's and my 28th wedding anniversary. So we're celebrating doubly, and then I'll be back, and I'll be here for 5 days, and I go do a women's conference in northern Michigan with Bethany Jett, and we'll be speaking about platinum faith.
I bet you will. Well, you are an amazing champion. And we have another amazing champion coming any moment now, also named Michelle. But Michelle, thanks. I know you're busy. I know you are. Thank you for taking a little time out and just sharing with us. You are, you're amazing. Okay. You are well accomplished as a professional, but you are a champion for Jesus Christ, publishing words of encouragement and hope, but most of all truth. And we appreciate you so much.
Thanks.
All right, let me, okay. Folks, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a short break, and I haven't coordinated with our video hostess, but what we're going to do, we're going to play maybe 1 or 2 videos. Now, normally we wait until the end of a video to jump in here, but given the time that many of you are staying up late to be with us, and we want to show some consideration for you, not to mention the fact that I have to produce this stuff afterwards, and I have to get up at 4:30 in the morning. So we will be back in a few moments with Michelle Bankson. She has a story to tell. Really, I've heard just the headline of it, and I can't wait to hear more. So PJ Net Live will continue in just a few minutes.